Dynamic tensions in evaluation. This is a presentation on particular aspects of social and educational program evaluation. A program is an intervention typically funded by the government, private foundations, or nonprofit organizations to improve the character and quality of people's lives. Program evaluation is therefore about gathering empirical data and making judgments of quality about that particular intervention. And more formally on the slide, evaluation is the social and technical process of gathering and using empirical data to make judgments of quality about the entity being evaluated, in this presentation, social and educational programs. So evaluation is a social practice because it involves relationships and interactions with people on the ground, with the program participants, the program leaders, the program staff, called stakeholders in evaluation, referring to all individuals and groups who have a stake or an investment in the program being evaluated. Evaluation is a technical practice. It relies on the methodologies of social science. And evaluation is also a valuing practice. It yields judgments of quality based on selected criteria for judging quality, and therefore selected values and value judgments. Evaluation often takes place in some kind of policy or other decision context. Somebody wants to know if this money is being well spent. Are the intended outcomes being attained? Is the program going as well as we hope that it will be? Do people enjoy this intervention? And in that kind of policy or decision context, there's often characteristics that make it challenging. There are multiple stakeholders with multiple interests. The stakes of the evaluation can be very high. The program will continue or not, depending on the results. The funding is often low, inadequate to do a fully comprehensive evaluation. Politics are ever present, and sometimes politics and political influences can be very overpowering and strong. Programs themselves are highly complex phenomena, and it's almost impossible to conduct an evaluation of a program that captures all aspects of it. And finally, the methodologies of social science are ever imperfect, despite what public ideas might despite what the public may think about the character of scientific method. In social science, they are never perfect. So from these various complexities of the context, tensions arise in evaluation. They're inherent to the practice of evaluation, and as I said, also arise from the context. So the focus of this presentation is to identify some of these tensions, not necessarily with the hopes of resolving them, because I'm not sure resolution is possible, but rather towards recognizing them, understanding them better, so that they might be anticipated and therefore incorporated into a given evaluator's practice, yielding more thoughtful, even, balanced, and actually useful evaluation results. Some of the key sources of tensions are listed on this slide. We have a multiplicity of legitimate stakeholders. There are limits, financial and time-wise, methodological limits on evaluation questions that can be addressed. Tensions come inherently in some methodological choices, choosing to do something and not something else, a survey rather than an interview. Tensions are inherent in the evaluator role and inevitability of politics in evaluation context. I would like to take each of these 5 sources of tensions, I'm sure there are more, and just illustrate them briefly. Again, my agenda here is not to resolve these, but to help evaluators anticipate and be aware of these kinds of tensions so as to try to mitigate some of their negative effects in their own evaluation practice. So again, stakeholder tensions, there are 3 main groups of stakeholders plus a 4th, the public interest. The decision makers and policymakers are one group. The program leaders and staff on the ground are a second. The intended program beneficiaries, families, and communities are a third. And there's often the general public interest as a 4th stakeholder group. Questions become, how does one evaluation respond effectively to the concerns and interests of multiple legitimate stakeholders? In particular, how can the interest of the least powerful stakeholders in an evaluation context be meaningfully addressed? So those are the kinds of tensions that arise with a multiplicity of stakeholders in most evaluation contexts. There are tensions that related to key evaluation questions. And again, to remind you, we can't answer all legitimate questions in any single evaluation. So that's one set of tensions. The questions do arise from the stated needs for the evaluation, which are most often policy or decision contexts, and therefore those questions often get priority, leaving other questions out. Questions often rest on erroneous assumptions. I say this from many years of experience. The assumptions that the program being evaluated has a clear and well-supported underlying theory or logic, and that the program is easily implemented and has a good fit to this particular context. In addition, questions that are being asked don't always fit the maturity level of the program. A program in its developmental stage, the best kinds of evaluation questions for that kind of program are design. How well is the design of the program going? In a pilot testing stage, the best kinds of evaluation questions are those of implementation. How effectively and smoothly is the program being implemented? At an efficacy stage, we start looking at outcomes. Does this program show promise of reaching intended outcomes? And then at the effectiveness stage, after completion of all those previous stages, we can start asking questions about generalization and longer-term effects of the program. But often there's a mismatch between the questions that are mandated and the stage of development of the program. Third, there are tensions related to evaluation methodology. Evaluators are wonderfully lucky social scientists. We get to choose from all the wondrous array of methodological options open to us, but they come with some tensions. Some methods are best at addressing specific aspects and dimensions of context, while others are better at generating responses and data with broader generality, depth, and breadth. We can engage with the values of the program and context with our methodologies, or we can strive to maintain scientific objectivity, or we can do some of both. But there are tensions in the two ends of that continuum. There's a common desire in evaluations for a comparison group, but people don't always say compared to what, and for what reasons we would want a comparison group. And there are, as I said, particular standpoints and values that are embedded in particular method choices. In other words, methods are not neutral conveyors of data. Fourth, there are tensions related to the evaluator's role. These are all continua, and there's tensions at each standpoint along these continua. Evaluator as insider, getting a friend or a member of the context to conduct an evaluation, versus getting somebody who's an outsider who may be more impartial but know less about the context. Having an evaluator who cultivates trust and insight versus an evaluator who cultivates fairness and objectivity. These are not necessarily opposed, but there are tensions between these two kinds of evaluator predispositions. Focusing on local understanding, how well is this program doing in this particular context for these students, compared to an evaluator role that's aiming more for informing theory and the broader content area of that particular program. An evaluator as facilitator of stakeholder understanding, compared to an evaluator who is perceived or who places him or herself as a judge only of quality. And finally, there's innumerable tensions that are related to political factors that are an inevitable part of evaluation contexts. Things like, who are the champions and who are the critics of the program? What is really at stake in this particular evaluation? What pressures exist for positive evaluation results or for negative evaluation results? And many, many, many more. So lessons learned here, my intent for the lessons learned are that, again, we're not trying to manage or overcome all of these tensions, but I'm encouraging evaluators to be attentive to and try to deal with inevitable tensions in evaluation toward the generation of stronger, more defensible evaluation, implementation, and results, and towards possibly a more accepting evaluation context. For example, getting more stakeholders on board and supportive of the evaluation, which is all in service of more relevant, useful, and actually used evaluation processes and results.